I've been driving this stretch of Highway 99 for 12 years now, ever since I got my CDL and started hauling produce up and down California's gut. Manteca to Bakersfield, Bakersfield to Fresno, Fresno back to Manteca, sometimes a detour over to Stockton if the load's going to the port. It's the same black ribbon of asphalt every time, the same truck stops glowing like tired eyes in the dark, the same field stretching out flat and endless under whatever moon we get that night. I know every crack in the pavement between the Flying J and the Chevron at Lost Hills. I know which mile marker has the memorial cross wrapped in faded plastic flowers, and I know the exact spot where the fog usually rolls in thick enough to swallow the reflectors. Nothing ever changes. That's what I told myself anyway, until last month. It was one of those December nights where the cold creeps under the door seals and sits on your chest like a passenger you didn't pick up. I dropped a trailer of lettuce in Bakersfield around 9, grabbed a deadhead back north because dispatch promised a good load out of Fresno in the morning. The highway was almost empty. Just me, a couple of Swift drivers running team, and the usual scattered cars hurrying home before the real chill set in. My coffee was old and bitter. The radio stuck between stations, so all I got was faint mariachi bleeding under static. I was somewhere south of Tulare doing a steady 72 in the right lane when I saw the car. It was a dark sedan, maybe a Camry or an Accord, one of those anonymous four doors that blend into traffic during the day. It was stopped dead on the shoulder, hazards blinking slow orange pulses into the night. The driver's door hung open, dome light on, and there was a figure standing beside it, tall, thin, wearing what looked like a long coat. I caught all that in the sweep of my headlights as I rolled past. I didn't slow down at first. You see broken down cars all the time out here, and half the time the driver's already on the phone with AAA or a buddy. But something about the way the person stood there, perfectly still, facing the open door instead of the road, made me ease off the throttle. I checked my mirrors. No one behind me. I flicked my four-ways on and pulled over 100 yards ahead, tires rumbling over the reflectors. I sat there for a minute with the engine idling, watching in the side mirror. The figure hadn't moved, the hazards kept blinking, steady as a heartbeat. I told myself it was nothing, probably just some guy pissed off at a flat tire, but I've been around long enough to know when something feels off. I grabbed my flashlight, zipped my jacket, and climbed down. The air hit me hard, sharp, dry cold that smelled faintly of dairy farms and diesel. I walked back along the shoulder, boots crunching on gravel, keeping my light pointed low so I wouldn't blind whoever it was. When I got close enough to speak, I called out, "You good? Need a hand?" No answer. The person was still facing the open door, head slightly bowed like they were reading something inside the car. I swung the beam up slowly. It was a woman, maybe late 30s, wearing a dark wool coat that looked too nice for standing on the side of the highway at midnight. Her hair was pulled back tight, and her hands hung loose at her sides. She didn't turn when the light hit her. I tried again, louder this time. "Ma'am? Everything okay?" Still nothing. I took another couple of steps, close enough now to see inside the car. The driver's seat was empty, passenger seat empty, back seat empty. No luggage, no phone glowing on the console, no steam from someone just having sat there. It looked like the car had been driving itself and decided to pull over for a rest. I swept the light across her face. She was staring straight into the empty driver's seat, eyes wide open, lips slightly parted. Not scared, not sad, just blank. Like someone had paused her. I felt the little hairs on my neck lift, the way they do when you realize the dog that's been barking at you isn't barking at you at all. I reached out and touched her shoulder, lightly, ready to pull back fast. She didn't flinch. Her coat was cold, like she'd been standing there a lot longer than a few minutes. "Hey," I said, softer now. "You with me?" Nothing. Her skin felt normal through the fabric, not frozen, just cold from the night. I tried gently turning her toward me. She moved easily, like a department store mannequin, but her eyes stayed fixed on the empty seat, even as her body rotated. That was when I noticed her hands. Both palms were pressed together in front of her, fingers interlaced, but not like she was praying, more like she was holding something small and invisible between them, squeezing it hard. Her knuckles were white. I asked if she was hurt. No blood, no obvious injury. I asked if someone had left her here. Nothing. I told her my truck was right up there, that I had heat and coffee and a CB if she needed to call someone. Still nothing. The only sound was the wind moving across the fields and the faint tick of her hazards. I stood there feeling useless, the kind of useless that starts turning into panic if you let it. I didn't want to leave her, but I also didn't want to drag a stranger into my cab if she was having some kind of episode. I've seen drivers get in trouble for trying to help the wrong person. So I called it in on the CB first, asking if any locals had a trooper nearby. Static mostly. Then some guy out of Visalia said CHP was tied up with a rollover south of town, might be an hour. I thanked him and clicked off. By then, I'd made up my mind. I told her I was going to get her out of the cold, that she could sit in the truck until help came. I took her elbow gently and started walking her forward. She came along without resistance, feet moving in perfect quiet steps, eyes still locked on that empty car behind us until we rounded the front of my trailer and it disappeared from view. Only then did her gaze drop to the ground, like whatever spell had been holding her finally loosened a notch. I got her up into the passenger seat, closed the door, cranked the heat. She sat straight, hands now resting on her thighs, still pressed palm to palm like she hadn't let go of whatever invisible thing she'd been holding. I offered coffee. She didn't answer, didn't even look at the thermos. I kept talking anyway. Low, calm stuff about how help was coming, how these things happen, how the cold can mess with people. I don't know why I kept talking. Maybe because the silence felt worse. After maybe 10 minutes, she spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, educated, like someone who reads a lot. She said, "He was right there." That was all. I asked who. She didn't answer. I asked if someone had been in the car with her. She turned her head slowly and looked at me, really looked for the first time, and said, "He was driving." Then she went quiet again. I didn't push it. People break down in different ways out here. Grief, drugs, exhaustion, whatever. I figured she'd talk when she was ready or when the trooper showed up. I kept an eye on the mirrors, waiting for lights. None came. After 20 minutes, I tried the CB again. Dead air. My cell had one bar, flickering. I thought about driving her to the next exit, but something stopped me. Maybe the way she kept staring at the dashboard like she expected someone else to be sitting behind the wheel. Maybe the way the temperature in the cab felt wrong, like the heat was running full blast, but the air stayed thin and cold around her. Eventually, I told her I was going to check her car, see if I could find a phone or registration, something with a name. She didn't react. I climbed down, walked back. The hazards were still going, but slower now, like the battery was giving up. I shined my light inside again, still empty. Glove box had the usual: manual, napkins, insurance card in the name of Laura M. Ellison, address in Fresno. No phone, no purse. Back seat had a child's car seat, one of those rear-facing ones, straps neatly buckled like it was waiting. That hit me harder than it should have. I closed the door, killed the hazards to save what was left of the battery, and stood there a minute listening to the night. Nothing but wind. When I got back to the cab, she was gone. The passenger door was wide open, heat pouring out into the dark. I ran around the front, no footprints leading away, no sign of her on the shoulder. I called her name, swept the light across the ditch, the field beyond. Nothing. Just the low hum of my idling engine and the distant rush of a car passing in the left lane. Driver probably never even saw my four-ways. I stood there feeling like the biggest idiot alive. How does someone just vanish from a parked semi in the space of 2 minutes? I checked the sleeper, empty, under the truck, nothing. I even looked in the trailer like that made any sense. I drove the rest of the way to Fresno with the passenger seat empty and the heat still cranked, trying to convince myself she'd wandered off when I wasn't looking, that she was fine, that someone else would find her. But I knew that wasn't true. The way she'd moved, the way she'd spoken, none of it added up to someone who could just walk away into the dark without a sound. I turned the load in at dawn, grabbed the next one headed north, and tried to put it behind me. You hear stories on the road all the time: ghost hitchhikers, vanishing passengers, whole rigs that show up empty after drivers swear they had company. Most of it's bullshit told to stay awake. I never believed any of it. But for the next week, I took different routes when I could. stuck to 5 instead of 99, told dispatch I had family stuff in the Bay Area. I avoided that stretch south of Tulare altogether. Then, 3 nights ago, I had to deadhead south again. Dispatch didn't give me a choice. Good paying load waiting in Bakersfield, tight window. I told myself it was fine. Different night, different weather. I'd be past that mile marker in minutes. I kept the radio off, windows up, just the sound of tires on pavement. I saw the reflectors coming up, the same ones I'd parked beside. My stomach tightened anyway. I eased off the gas a little without meaning to. That's when I noticed the car, same spot, same dark sedan. Hazards blinking slow. Driver's door open, dome light on. I checked the mirrors hard, half expecting to see myself parked ahead like some loop, but there was only empty road behind me. I rolled past slow this time, close to the shoulder, close enough to see inside as my lights washed over it. Empty seats. Car seat in the back. And standing beside the open door, tall coat, hands pressed together, was the woman. She was facing the car exactly like before, head bowed, perfectly still. I didn't stop. I couldn't. My foot stayed on the throttle and I watched her shrink in the mirror until the hazards disappeared. I drove all the way to Bakersfield doing 85, heart hammering so hard I thought the steering wheel would shake loose. I didn't sleep that night, just sat in the bunk with the curtains drawn, listening to idling engines outside the truck stop, waiting for something I couldn't name. Last night I came north again. Same load pattern. I told dispatch I was sick, tried to swap runs, but nothing doing. So here I am, south of Tulare once more, writing this on a borrowed phone in the library parking lot in Fresno because I can't sleep and I can't go home yet. I keep thinking about that car seat buckled and waiting. I keep thinking about what she said. He was driving. I looked up the name on the insurance card when I got signal this morning. Laura Ellison, 38, reported missing by her husband 2 weeks before I first saw her. Car found abandoned on 99, no sign of her or the 3-year-old son who'd been with her on a trip to visit grandparents. Case still open. No suspects. No leads. I don't know what's happening out there. I don't know if I'll see her again tonight or if something worse is waiting. I just know I have to drive that road again in about an hour, and whatever's sitting in that car isn't done yet. I keep checking the passenger seat like someone might appear there while I'm not looking. The heat's on full blast, but it still feels cold in here. I'm so goddamn tired, but I can't close my eyes because every time I do, I see her standing there, holding whatever she's holding, waiting for the person who was driving to come back. I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe so someone knows if I don't check in tomorrow. Maybe just to get it out before I have to get back on 99. If you're reading this and you drive that stretch at night, just keep going. Don't stop. Don't look too close. Whatever's broken down on the shoulder isn't something you can fix. That was last week when I wrote that first part, but I couldn't post it then because the library closed and my hands were shaking too much to hit send anyway. I drove the route that night like I had to, eyes glued to the road, trying not to glance at the shoulder every time the mile markers ticked by. Nothing happened. No car, no woman, just empty asphalt and the occasional semi blasting past in the left lane. I made it to Manteca by morning, unloaded, crashed in my apartment for 12 hours straight. Woke up thinking maybe it was all in my head, the exhaustion from back-to-back runs, the way the cold plays tricks on your mind. I even laughed about it a little, told myself I'd been listening to too many podcasts about unsolved cases, but deep down, I knew better. Things like that don't just evaporate because you sleep them off. A couple days later, dispatch had me running south again, same pattern. I didn't argue this time. Figured if I kept dodging it, they'd start asking questions, and I didn't have answers that wouldn't get me sidelined for a psych eval. So I loaded up in Fresno, hit 99 at dusk, coffee fresh this time, radio tuned to some talk show droning about politics to keep my mind occupied. The stretch approached slow, like the road was stretching itself out on purpose. I saw the reflectors glint ahead, told myself to breathe steady. And there it was again. The sedan, pulled over exactly where it had been, hazards pulsing like they'd never stopped. Door open. Woman standing there, coat buttoned tight, hands clasped in front, staring into the empty car. This time I slowed more, almost to a crawl, headlights full on her. She didn't move, Didn't acknowledge the truck rumbling by, but as I passed, I swear I saw something in the back seat. Just a shadow, maybe. Or the outline of the car seat shifting slightly, like something small had adjusted position. I hit the gas hard after that, mirrors showing the hazards fading quick. Didn't stop until Bakersfield, where I pulled into a lot and sat with the doors locked, watching the entrance like someone might follow me in. I searched her name again on my phone that night, dug deeper into the news clips. Laura Ellison and her son, Tyler, vanished on a routine drive. Husband said she'd called him from the road earlier that day, sounding normal, talking about stopping for snacks. No history of mental issues, no enemies, no debts, just gone. One article mentioned a witness, a farmer who thought he saw the car pulled over that afternoon, but when he drove by later, it was empty. No one connected it until the report came in. The next run north, I prepared myself. Bought one of those dash cams from a truck stop, mounted it facing forward, figured if I saw her again, I'd have proof, something to show the cops or at least replay for myself to prove I wasn't losing it. Hit the stretch around midnight, fog starting to creep in from the fields, turning the shoulders hazy. The car was there, same as ever. I slowed to 40, cam rolling, lights cutting through the mist. She was standing there, but this time her head turned slightly as I approached, not toward me, but toward the back seat, like she was checking on something. I caught a glimpse inside. The car seat straps looked looser, like they'd been unbuckled recently, and there was a small toy on the floorboard, a stuffed bear or something, arm twisted wrong. I didn't stop, but I played the footage back later in the cab, frame by frame. In one shot, just for a second, there's a blur in the back window, like a small hand pressing against the glass from inside, fingers splayed wide. That footage haunts me now. I've watched it a dozen times since, zooming in, adjusting the contrast. Sometimes I think I see eyes reflecting back in that blur, wide and watching. Other times it's just pixels, noise from the fog. I showed it to a buddy at the depot, casual-like, asked if he saw anything weird. He laughed, said it looked like a smudge on the lens, told me to get more sleep. But he didn't watch it all the way through. Didn't see how the woman's posture changes in the last frames, how her clasped hands tighten, knuckles going whiter, like she's crushing whatever's between them. It's been happening more often now. Not every run, but enough that I dread the schedule. Last time, 2 nights ago, I pulled over a mile before the spot, killed the lights, and waited in the dark, engine off, just to see. Sat there for an hour, cold seeping in, watching the shoulder through binoculars I'd picked up. At first, nothing. Then, around 1 a.m., the hazards started blinking out of nowhere. No car approaching, no sound of an engine pulling up. Just orange flashes appearing in the distance, like the whole scene materialized from the fog. The door swung open slow, dome light flickering on, and there she was, stepping into view from behind the car, coat swaying slightly, hands already pressed together. She took her position by the door, stared inside, and froze. I waited another 20 minutes, then started up and drove past fast, not looking back. What's getting to me worse is the dreams. They started after that third sighting. I'm driving, but the cab feels wrong, too quiet, too still. Then I glance at the passenger seat and she's there, sitting straight, hands in her lap, staring at the dash. She turns to me slow and says, "He was driving," but her voice echoes funny, like it's coming from the back of the truck instead. I wake up sweating, check the sleeper like an idiot. Last night it was different. In the dream, I looked in the rear view and saw the car seat installed behind me, straps buckled tight around nothing, but the fabric was moving, like something was breathing under it. And her hands, they weren't empty anymore. She was holding a small shoe, toddler size, laces untied, dirt caked on the sole like it had been walking through fields. I've thought about quitting, finding local work, but the bills don't stop and dispatch likes me reliable. Besides, part of me needs to know what's next. If it's just her, repeating, or if one night the back seat won't be empty. If Tyler's there, sitting quiet, waiting for his mom to turn around, or worse, if he's the one driving now, small hands on the wheel, eyes blank like hers. I searched more today, found forums where other drivers talk about 99 at night, abandoned cars that reappear, Figures on the shoulder who don't respond. One guy said he stopped once, years ago, and found a woman like that. But when he touched her, she crumbled like ash, left him with burns that never healed right. Bullshit, probably, but I keep reading anyway. Tonight's another run south. I'll pass the spot again. Maybe she'll be there, holding that invisible thing tighter. Maybe the car seat will have a shape in it this time. I keep telling myself it's coincidence, bad luck, but I know the road better than that. It holds on to things, accidents, losses, people who vanish without trace. And once it shows you something, it doesn't let go easy. If I don't post again, check the logs for my rig. Tell them to look south of Tulare, where the fog rolls in. Tell them not to touch her hands. I've logged more miles on I-80 than I care to count, pushing 15 years behind the wheel, mostly carting boxed crap from Oakland's docks straight into Reno's warehouses, then scraping together whatever backhaul I can snag for the return leg west. Same grind day in, day out. Shove off from the bay fog in the fading afternoon light. Grind up those twisting Sierra inclines while the shadows stretch long, crest the top as full night settles in, and coast down into that barren high country flatness where the wind slices clean through you and the stars hang too damn close. Donner Pass turns ugly fast in the cold months, but I've got it wired. Who needs chains where, which lanes slick over quickest, how the gusts barrel through the gaps and shove your rig around like it's nothing. I've watched semis fold like accordions against the barriers, guys stumbling out pale and muttering, and I've yanked my share of greenhorns from snowbanks after they bit off more curve than they could chew. Shit like that doesn't faze me. Or it didn't. Not until these last few weeks started chipping away at whatever calm I had left. It was one of those January nights where the forecast can't make up its mind. Clear skies out of Sacramento, then a winter weather advisory kicking in west of Truckee. I'd picked up a load of electronics pallets in Emeryville, sealed trailer, good weight, nothing shifting. Dispatch wanted it in Sparks by morning, so I was pushing a little, keeping it at 65 where the limit allowed 70. Traffic thinned out fast after Auburn. Most of the cars bail off at 50 or head north on 89 this time of year. By the time I crested the pass and started the long descent toward Reno, it was just me and a few other trucks strung out like beads on a wire, headlights cutting tunnels through the dark. That's when I saw the pickup. It was a late model Ford F-150, dark blue or black, pulled off onto the wide, snow-packed emergency lane just past the Gold Run rest area. Hood up, driver's door open, interior light on. One of those LED trouble triangles set up about 50 feet back, blinking steady red. I caught it in my lights as I came around the bend, truck sitting nose first into the guardrail like it had eased off the road gentle instead of sliding. No damage I could see from the lane, no steam rising, just parked there, quiet. A figure was standing at the rear bumper back to the highway, staring down at the snow like he'd dropped something small and was trying to spot it in the dark. I didn't plan to stop. You don't usually when it's 20 degrees and the wind's whipping down the canyon. CHP runs patrols up here regular, and most folks have roadside assistance on speed dial. But something about the way the guy stood there, perfectly still, arms hanging loose, not waving me down, not even glancing over when my Jake brake rumbled, made me lift off the throttle. I checked the mirrors, nobody close behind. I flicked on my fours and eased onto the shoulder a couple 100 yards ahead, tires crunching through packed snow. Sat there a minute with the engine idling, watching in the side mirror. He hadn't moved. The triangle kept blinking, throwing red pulses across the snow. I told myself it was nothing, probably just a guy waiting for a tow, but the quiet felt wrong. Too absolute, like the mountain was holding its breath. I grabbed my flashlight, pulled on gloves, and climbed down. The cold hit, immediate. Dry, high-altitude bite that goes straight through your jacket. Wind coming down off the ridges hard enough to rock the trailer a little. I walked back slow, boots sinking a few inches with each step, keeping my light low. When I got within 30 yards, I called out, "Hey, you need help?" Voice carried, then got swallowed by the pines. No answer. The guy was still facing away, head down, hands at his sides. I got closer. "Sir, everything all right?" Nothing. Just the wind and the faint tick of my cooling engine behind me. Up close, I could see he was mid-40s maybe. wearing a Carhartt jacket and jeans, work boots laced tight. No hat, which was stupid in this weather. His hair was short, dark, dusted with snowflakes that weren't melting. I swung the light up slow. He was staring at the tailgate like it was a window, eyes fixed on the bed of the truck. The tonneau cover was closed, no tools scattered, no spare tire out, nothing to suggest he'd been working on anything. I asked again if he was hurt, if the truck wouldn't start. He didn't blink, didn't shift weight, just stood there breathing slow, visible clouds coming steady from his mouth. I moved around to the side, careful not to crowd him. The cab was empty. Driver's seat pushed back, passenger seat clear, no fast food bags or coffee cups, no phone on the dash. Back seat looked empty too, though the windows were starting to frost on the inside. I asked if anyone else was with him. No response. I reached out and touched his arm, light, ready to pull back. He didn't react. His jacket felt cold through the canvas, colder than the air around us. I gave a gentle tug, trying to turn him toward me. He rotated easy, feet pivoting in the snow without lifting, but his eyes stayed locked on that tailgate even as his body faced me now. That's when I noticed his hands. They were hanging open, palms up, fingers slightly curled like he'd been carrying something and it had just slipped away. I told him my rig was right there, heat running. I had a CB and coffee if he wanted to wait inside. He didn't answer, didn't look at me. I tried guiding him forward a step. He moved with me, slow and compliant, but his head turned back toward the truck like it was on a swivel, eyes never leaving the bed. We made it maybe 10 feet before he stopped dead, planted like his boots had frozen to the ground. I tugged again. Nothing. He just stood there, staring past me at the pickup, mouth slightly open, breath still coming even. That's when I heard it. Faint, almost lost under the wind, a soft thump from inside the truck bed, like something shifting weight under the cover. Then another. Slow, deliberate. I froze. The guy didn't react at all, like he hadn't heard. I shined my light back toward the pickup. The tonneau was latched tight. No movement I could see, but the thump came again, heavier this time, followed by a faint scrape, metal on metal. I asked him what he had back there. Tools, equipment, an animal maybe. Nothing. His eyes stayed fixed, pupils wide even in the flashlight beam. I should have walked away then. Should have climbed back in my cab and called it in on the CB, let the troopers handle whatever domestic or breakdown this was. But I've pulled dogs out of hot cars and drunks out of ditches, and something about the absolute stillness in this guy made me think he wasn't right. Stroke, hypothermia, something medical. I told him I was going to check the truck, make sure everything was secure. He didn't stop me. I walked back alone, boots loud in the snow, wind pushing at my back. I got to the tailgate, listened. Quiet now. No more thumps. I reached for the latch on the tonneau, hesitated, then pulled it up slow. The cover rolled back a foot, empty. Just the ridged bed liner, a couple tie-down straps coiled neat, light dusting of snow that had blown in. No tools, no luggage, no animal. Nothing. I pushed the cover further, still empty all the way to the cab. I stood there feeling the cold crawl deeper, trying to figure what I'd heard. Wind, maybe, or ice shifting on the roof. I closed it up, latched it, turned around. The guy was gone. No footprints leading away except mine and the ones we'd made coming toward the rig. Just the disturbed snow where he'd been standing, and the triangle still blinking red. I called out his name. I didn't even know it, just yelled, "Hey!" into the dark. Nothing came back but wind through the trees. I swept the light across the shoulder, the tree line, the ditch, empty. I walked fast back to my truck, climbed in, locked the doors like that would help. Sat there 10 minutes, watching the pickup in the mirrors. No movement. Triangle finally died, battery spent. I tried the CB, static mostly, then a weak signal from some driver eastbound saying conditions were clear to Reno. No mention of a breakdown or a pedestrian. I drove the rest of the way to Sparks with the heat cranked, checking the passenger seat every few minutes like someone might have climbed in while I blinked. Delivered the load at dawn, grabbed coffee at the Petro, didn't say anything to anyone. Told myself it was exhaustion, altitude messing with my head, echoes off the canyon walls. But I avoided that stretch for the next week. Took 50 over Echo Summit even though it added hours. Then last night I had to come back west. Empty trailer out of Reno. Good reload waiting in Roseville. Snow had melted some. Roads bare and wet. I hit the pass around midnight. Same direction, same quiet. Told myself it was fine. Different night. I kept the radio low, just scanner chatter. Came down the grade past Gold Run and there it was again. The same dark F-150, same spot, hood up, door open, triangle blinking. Figure standing at the rear, back to the road, staring at the tailgate. I slowed this time, rolled past at 30, close enough to see the license plate. California, partial match to what I remembered. As my light swept the bed, I caught something. The tonneau was rolled back halfway, and there was a shape under a tarp or blanket, long and narrow, shifting slightly like whatever was underneath had just settled. The guy didn't turn, didn't acknowledge me at all. I sped up after that, didn't stop until I hit the chain-off area at Cisco Grove, pulled over and sat shaking for 20 minutes. I'm in the library in Auburn now, using their guest computer because I can't sleep and my phone's almost dead. I looked up missing persons out of the Reno area this morning when I had signal. Found one that fits. Daniel Reyes, 42, truck driver himself, reported missing by his wife after he didn't come home from a delivery run-up 82 months ago. His F-150 was recovered a week later, parked off the shoulder near Gold Run. Hood up, no sign of foul play. Case went cold fast. Assumed he walked away into the snow, exposure, or suicide. But the article mentioned the tonneau cover was unlatched when they found it, and something about the bedliner being scratched deep, like claws or metal dragged slow. I keep thinking about those thumps. About what might be under that cover now, waiting for him to come back and finish whatever he started. About how he stands there every night, palms open like he dropped something he can't pick up again. I've got to run east again tomorrow. Same route, same load pattern. The snow's coming back tonight, heavy, they say. I don't know if he'll be there when the roads are buried, or if the shape in the bed will finally sit up and look around. If you drive I-80 over Donner at night, especially westbound past Gold Run, just keep moving. Don't stop for the dark pickup with the blinking triangle. Whatever he's waiting for isn't something you want to help him find. I wrote that a few days back, but couldn't bring myself to hit post right away. Kept staring at the screen like the words might change if I blinked long enough. Ended up driving the route anyway that next night, snow falling thick by then, chains rattling under the tires, visibility down to maybe 50 feet in the headlights. Made it past Gold Run without seeing anything at first. Told myself maybe the storm buried it all. But then the triangle's red blink cut through the flakes ahead, faint at first, then steady. The F-150 was there, half covered in fresh powder, hood up like before, door open with snow drifting into the cab. The figure stood at the rear, dusted white, still staring at the tailgate. I didn't slow much, just enough to catch the details. The tonneau rolled back further this time, the shape under the tarp more defined, like limbs bent wrong, fabric stained dark in spots where the snow melted against it. A low groan carried on the wind as I passed, not mechanical, more like air escaping something compressed too long. After that run, I dug deeper online during a layover in Reno. Found old forum posts from hikers and plow drivers talking about strange finds in the spring thaws around Donner. Abandoned gear, tracks that lead nowhere. Sometimes bones picked clean but arranged neat like they'd been laid out on purpose. One retired trooper mentioned in a comment how he'd investigated Reyes's truck back when it was found. How the scratches in the bed weren't random, more like deliberate marks, fingers maybe, or something trying to claw its way out from underneath. He said the liner had flecks of dried blood embedded deep, tested as human, but no match in the system. Case shelved because it didn't fit suicide or accident clean. 2 nights ago I ran west again. Couldn't dodge it with the schedule backed up from the storm. Hit the stretch around 1 a.m. Road slushy, fog mixing with the exhaust. The pickup appeared sudden, like it pushed up through the mist. Same setup, but the figure had shifted a step closer to the bed, one hand resting on the tailgate now, fingers digging into the metal slight, leaving dents I could see in my lights. The shape in the bed twitched as I rolled by. Tarp pulling tight over what looked like a shoulder or knee pressing up, and a muffled sound leaked out. Wet, ragged breathing, interrupted by something that might have been a word, too garbled to make out. I didn't stop, but later in Roseville I played it over in my head, convinced it was help, or maybe stop, echoing wrong like it came from inside a closed space. What's eating at me now is how it's changing each time, getting closer to whatever end it's building toward. Last run east, yesterday, I parked a mile out again, killed everything, sat in the dark with binoculars fogging from my breath, watched the spot until my eyes burned. Around midnight, the triangle flickered on slow, then the hood popped up on its own, door swinging wide. The figure materialized from the tree line, shuffling through the snow, coat torn in places I hadn't noticed before, skin pale and mottled under the red blinks. He took his position, but this time he leaned in closer to the bed, whispering something I couldn't hear, and the shape responded, thrashing brief under the tarp, stains spreading wider, dark and sticky-looking even from afar. A smell carried on the wind then, faint but unmistakable, rotting meat mixed with exhaust, like something left too long in the cold but starting to thaw. I've started dreaming about it, waking up in the bunk, convinced I feel the trailer shift behind me, like extra weight settled in while I slept. In the dreams, he's in the cab sometimes, sitting passenger side, palms up in his lap, staring at the glove box like it's the tailgate. Or worse, the tonneaus my trailer doors, and when I open them there's the shape, unwrapped, limbs contorted and skin sloughing off in patches from the freeze-thaw, eyes open and following me as I back away. I know it's my mind screwing with me, but I check the seals every stop now. Listen for thumps over the engine hum. Dispatch has me out again tonight. Heavy load eastbound. I'll pass Gold Run in a few hours. Maybe the figure will have the tarp pulled back fully this time, revealing whatever he's been guarding, or whatever's been holding him there. Maybe it'll crawl out, drag itself toward the road, looking for the next rig to flag down. I keep telling myself to quit, find warehouse work or something ground level, but the pay's shit and the road's all I know. Besides, ignoring it feels worse, like leaving something unfinished that'll follow you home eventually. If I go quiet after this, check the reports for abandoned semis near Donner. Tell them to look under the tarps careful. Some things don't stay buried once the snow melts. I've been grinding these flat Kansas runs on I-70 for going on 9 years now, ever since the divorce cleaned me out and left me with nothing but a leased Peterbilt and a stack of alimony checks to chase. Salina to Topeka, Topeka to Kansas City, sometimes a swing north to Omaha if the freight's light and the pay bumps up. It's endless wheat fields blurring into soy, the same grain elevators punching up against the horizon like forgotten teeth, the same wind farms spinning lazy in whatever breeze rolls through. I know every pothole from Hayes to Abilene, every Love's where the coffee tastes like diesel, and every stretch where the cell signal drops dead for miles. The nights are the worst. Straight black ahead, taillights winking far off like they're mocking you. Nothing ever breaks the routine. Until that run last month anyway. It started like any other haul. Picked up a trailer of machine parts in Denver around dusk, headed east with a deadline to hit a warehouse in KC by morning. Weather was holding, clear skies, no wind for once, thermometer dipping into the low 40s but nothing my heater couldn't handle. I was east of Colby, doing a steady 70 in the right lane, when my CB crackled to life. Usually it's just chatter from other drivers bitching about way stations or swapping weather reports, but this was different. A voice came through clear, no static, saying my name, full name, first and last, like we were old buddies. "Hey Randall, you still running that Blue Pete? Watch the scales at Oakley, they're hot tonight." I sat up straight, checked the channel. Nobody I recognized and I hadn't keyed up all night. Figured it was some joker who'd seen my rig at a stop earlier, maybe read the door panel. I ignored it, turned the volume down a notch. A few miles on, it happened again. Same voice, deeper this time, like a guy who'd smoked too many Pall Malls. "Randall, how's that knee holding up? The one you blew out in '98 playing pickup ball with the boys?" I felt my grip tighten on the wheel. Nobody knew about that, not dispatch, not the ex, just a couple old friends from back home in Wichita who I hadn't talked to in years. I keyed the mic, asked who the hell this was. No answer. Just dead air, then some faint laughter bleeding under the static, like a group chuckling at a shared joke. I switched channels, scanned through a few, but it followed me. Same voice popping up on each one, casual, dropping details. That meatloaf at the diner in Goodland wasn't sitting right, was it? Should have stuck with the burger. I'd eaten there 3 hours back, alone at the counter, hadn't told a soul. I told myself it was a prank. Some bored local with a boosted radio, maybe hacked into the system or something. Happens sometimes, kids screwing around. But the details kept coming, getting sharper. Your daughter's turning 16 next month, Randall. You sending that card or just the check again? That one hit low. I hadn't seen her since the custody fight, just wired money and got silence back. I yelled into the mic, demanded they cut the shit. Laughter again, louder, multiple voices now, overlapping like they were in a room together. Then one said, "Pull over at the next rest area. We'll talk." I looked ahead, sign for a rest stop coming up, one of those basic ones with vending machines and bathrooms, no trucks parked that I could see. I didn't want to stop. Every instinct said, keep rolling, push through to Selena where there'd be lights and people. But my bladder was full from the coffee, and the voices had gone quiet, like they were waiting. I eased off the throttle, pulled into the lot. It was empty. Just my headlights washing over cracked pavement, a couple picnic tables chained down, and the low brick building with its sodium lamps buzzing yellow. I sat in the cab a minute, engine idling, scanning the shadows. No other vehicles, no movement. I grabbed my tire thumper, just a habit for checking loads, and climbed down. The air was still, colder than it should have been, smelling faintly of cut grass even though the fields were dormant. I walked to the men's room, pushed the door open. Fluorescent lights flickered on automatic, reflecting off dingy tiles. Empty stalls, sinks dry like nobody'd used them in hours. I did my business quick, washed up, avoided the mirror because I looked like hell, bags under my eyes, 3 days of stubble. As I turned to leave, the hand dryer kicked on by itself, hot air blasting loud. I jumped a little, cursed under my breath. Then, from the vent above it, that voice again, not over speakers, but muffled, like someone talking through the wall. "Randall, you remember that night in 2007? The one with the deer on 135? You didn't stop then either." I froze. Nobody knew about that. Swerved to miss a buck, clipped it anyway, kept driving because I was late and figured it was done. But the guilt stuck, replayed in quiet moments. I bolted out, back to the truck, climbed in, locked the doors, keyed the engine. As I pulled out, the CB lit up again. "We're not done, Randall. Check the trailer." I ignored it, merged back onto the interstate, pushed to 75. But the words gnawed. What if something was wrong with the load? A shift, a leak, could cost me the job. I told myself it was bullshit, but 5 miles on I couldn't shake it. Pulled over on the shoulder, 4 ways flashing, grabbed my flashlight. Walked back to the trailer doors, undid the seals. Dispatch would chew me for breaking them early, but screw it. Swung them open. Inside, the pallets looked fine, strapped tight, no damage. But as I swept the light around, something caught my eye. A small envelope taped to the inside of the door, my name handwritten on it. I stared, felt the night press in heavier. Tore it open. Inside was a photo, old, faded, of me and the ex at our wedding, smiling like idiots. On the back, scrawled in pen, "She kept the dress, wears it sometimes." I dropped it, slammed the doors, got back in the cab shaking. How? Nobody could have gotten in there. The trailer was sealed in Denver, inspected by me personally. The voices started up again as I drove, not just one now, but a chorus taking turns. One mentioned my bank balance, down to the cent. Another recited my social security number slow, like reading it off a card. A woman's voice, sounded like my sister, said, "Mom's worried about your drinking, Randall. That flask under the seat isn't fooling anyone." I yanked the CB knob, turned it off completely, but the radio came on instead, AM band, static clearing to the same voices bleeding through a farm report. "You can't turn us off. We're right here." I switched to FM. Same thing. Killed the power entirely. Silence for a mile, then my phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "Exit at Russell. We'll wait." I threw the phone in the glove box, focused on the road. But the signs started changing. Mile markers repeating. 254, then 254 again after a few minutes. I checked the odometer, moving forward, but the landscape looped subtle. Same billboard for a casino, same overpass shadow. I sped up, hit 80. Voices came back, not from the radio now, but faint, like whispers from the vents. Pull over, Randall, it's time. I saw the exit for Russell approaching. Again? I'd passed it 20 miles back. I took it anyway, tires squealing, because staying on felt worse, like sinking deeper into whatever this was. The off-ramp led to a 2-lane blacktop, no lights, just fields stretching dark. I drove a mile, saw a glow ahead, a small motel, neon sign flickering, vacancy. I hadn't planned to stop, but the truck felt heavy, like it was pulling me there. Parked in the lot, empty except for a couple sedans under tarps. Walked to the office, bell jingling as I pushed in. Clerk behind the counter looked up. Older guy, glasses perched low, and said, "Room 7, Randall, keys on the hook." Didn't ask for ID, didn't mention payment. I stood there dumb. "How do you—" He cut me off. "We've been expecting you. Coffee's fresh if you want." I took the key, walked to the room, unlocked it, bed made, TV on low showing static, sat on the edge, head in hands, trying to breathe. The phone in the room rang, picked it up, no dial tone, just the voice. "Look in the drawer." I did. Bible there, but tucked inside was a stack of papers, my divorce decree, bank statements, even a ultrasound photo from when the ex was pregnant. Things I'd burned years ago. I dropped it, backed away. Knocking at the door then, soft, insistent. I didn't answer. It stopped, but shadows moved under the gap, like feet shifting. I barricaded with the chair, sat up all night listening. Whispers through the walls now, names of people I'd wronged, small lies I'd told, debts unpaid. By dawn I staggered out, got in the truck, drove back to the interstate. No voices at first, made it to Salina, dropped the load, checked into a real hotel, slept fitful, dreamed of eyes watching from rear views. But it didn't stop. Next run, same stretch, voices back midway. "You left us waiting, Randall." Mile markers looping again. I've tried different routes, 35 south, 135 north, but it pulls me back to 70 somehow, detours leading nowhere. Last night, I stopped at a truck stop in Hayes, asked other drivers if they'd heard anything weird on the CB. They looked at me like I was cracked, said it was quiet all night. But as I walked out, one guy at the counter turned and said low, "We know about the accident, Randall, the one nobody reported." I'm in a library in Topeka now, typing this on a public terminal because my phone's been sending texts to itself, messages like, "Come back with coordinates to that motel." I looked up the exit. Doesn't exist on maps. The motel neither, but the details they know, the things they say, it's all real, pulled from corners of my head I forgot were there. I've got another run west tonight. Dispatch won't let me swap. I keep checking the mirrors, expecting to see faces in the glass. The flask is empty now, but it doesn't help. If I don't make it to Denver, check the logs. Tell them to stay off 70 after dark. Whatever's out there listening isn't just the wind. That was a week ago when I started typing this, but I couldn't finish because the screen glitched, words rearranging themselves into questions like, "Why did you leave her?" I logged off fast, drove the run anyway. Voices were waiting midway, louder, naming sins I'd buried deep. That time I fudged logs to make miles. The affair during the marriage that nobody found out about. The hit and run with the deer that wasn't just a deer, if I'm honest, because I saw fur that looked wrong in the headlights, but kept going anyway. They described it now, the way it thrashed on the shoulder, eyes reflecting back pleading. 2 nights back I took the exit again, couldn't help it. The truck steered itself almost, wheels pulling toward the ramp. Motel lot had more cars this time, lights on in every room. I parked, walked the hall. Doors cracked open as I passed, faces peering out. People I recognized vaguely, like echoes from my life. The ex's brother, a high school teacher, a boss I'd quit on bad terms. They didn't speak, just watched, eyes following. In my room, same one. The drawer had more. Letters I'd never sent. Photos of places I'd only dreamed about leaving. The whispers came through the air conditioner, recounting my father's last words before he passed. Things only I heard at the bedside. I left at dawn again, but now the loops are tighter. Mile markers repeat every 10 miles, signs for towns that flip names mid-glance. I've tried calling out, keyed the mic and begged them to stop. Laughter answers, then silence, then a single voice saying, "We're you, Randall, all the parts you left behind?" I searched online during a stop. Forums about haunted highways, drivers hearing ghosts on CBs. One post from a guy in 12 described the same. Voices knowing too much, pulling him off at phantom exits. He stopped posting after that. Account deleted. Last run, the trailer felt heavier coming back east. Stopped to check, doors unsealed somehow. Inside, among the pallets, a figure sitting cross-legged in the dark, face hidden. I slammed it shut, drove on. But I hear shifting now, thumps from behind like footsteps pacing the length. Whispers leak into the cab even with everything off. They're listing regrets, failures, secrets I haven't admitted to myself. Tonight's another haul west. I'll pass the spot again. Maybe this time I won't come back. If the rig shows up empty, don't open the trailer. Whatever's in there knows you too. I managed to get through that run a few nights ago without the exit pulling me in completely, but it was close. The ramp sign flickered like a bad bulb, spelling out my daughter's name for a split second before snapping back to Russell, and the voices hummed low under the engine noise, murmuring about the birthday I missed last year, how she waited by the phone for a call that never came. I gripped the wheel harder, floored it past, but the rear view kept catching glimpses of movement in the trailer's shadow, like someone was leaning against the doors from inside, testing the latch with slow, patient fingers. By the time I hit Denver, my hands were raw from clenching, knuckles aching like that old knee injury flaring up again, and when I dropped the load, the warehouse guys gave me weird looks because I insisted on watching them open the trailer, standing back like it might explode. Nothing there, of course, just the parts, strapped as I left them. But one pallet had shifted an inch, straps loose like they'd been tampered with, and on the floor was a smudge of dirt that looked too much like a partial boot print, the kind from my own work boots, size 11. The next haul east started normal enough, but midway through the whispers evolved, no longer just voices but layered with sounds, echoes of arguments I'd had with the ex, her voice cracking as she packed bags that last night, or the wet thud of that deer hitting the grill back in 2007, followed by a dragging scrape that went on too long in my memory. They played it back now, amplified through the vents, making the cab feel smaller, the air thicker, like I was breathing in the dust from all those forgotten miles. I tried blasting music from my phone to drown it, some old country station, but the songs warped mid-verse, lyrics twisting into accusations. "You ran from it all, Randall, left the pieces scattered on the shoulder." I yanked the aux cord, but the distortion lingered, humming in my ears even in the silence, and when I glanced at the passenger seat, there was a faint outline in the cushion, like someone light had been sitting there recently. The fabric still warm to the touch when I reached over, though I told myself it was just the heater vents playing tricks. I've started avoiding mirrors altogether now, even the ones in truck stop bathrooms, because last stop in Oakley I caught my reflection and it didn't match. Eyes too shadowed, mouth moving slightly like it was whispering back the secrets without me saying a word, lips forming shapes that matched the voice's timbre. I splashed water, rubbed hard, but the disconnect stuck, a lag between what I did and what the glass showed, like I was watching a delayed feed of myself unraveling. And the motel, it's not just off the exit anymore. Coordinates pop up in my GPS glitches, rerouting me without input, the screen flashing images for a frame or two, the room door ajar, shadows pooling inside like spilled ink, or faces at the windows, not just echoes from my past but distorted versions, smiles too wide, eyes hollowed out as if whatever's collecting these pieces is wearing them thin. 3 nights ago, I gave in halfway, pulled off at a different rest area thinking it might break the pattern, but as I sat in the cab chewing a stale sandwich, the CB sparked on its own, volume cranked, and a child's voice came through. Sounded like my daughter at 10, the age when things started falling apart, saying, "Daddy, why didn't you come back for us?" I hadn't told anyone about the dreams where she asks that, standing on the shoulder in the rain, but now it was real, her tone laced with that hurt I'd imagined 1,000 times, and behind it the chorus chuckled soft, like they were proud of the twist. I keyed up, voice breaking, apologized into the ether, but the response was just static laced with breathing, close and ragged, as if they were huddled right outside the door, listening to me crack. The figure in the trailer's gotten bolder too. Last check, doors creaked open on a bump without me touching them, and inside the shape had moved closer to the front, hunched now instead of sitting, arms wrapped around knees, head tilted like it was straining to hear the cab conversations. I didn't shine the light full on, afraid of what the face might show, maybe mine, aged and broken, or worse, a patchwork of all the people I've let down, stitched together with the threads of those buried regrets. The thumps come rhythmic now, matching my pulse when I'm trying to sleep in the bunk, and sometimes I wake to find small items rearranged, the flask refilled with something bitter that burns going down, or notes in my own handwriting listing failures I'd forgotten, tucked into my logbook like reminders. I know it's building to something, these loops tightening like a noose around the miles, the voices peeling back layers I didn't know were there, childhood stuff now, like the time I stole from my old man's wallet and watched him blame my brother, never confessing even after the belt came out. They recount it vivid, the leather snap echoing through the speakers, making my skin crawl with the guilt that's fermented over decades. Dispatch called today, asked why my times are slipping, why I'm logging extra fuel stops. I muttered about traffic, but the truth is I'm pulling over more, staring into the dark fields, half expecting to see shapes gathering at the fence lines, waiting for me to finally stop running. Tonight's run east again, and the flask is full somehow, tempting me to numb it, but I know that'll just let them in deeper. If the truck arrives without me, burn the trailer. Don't listen to what crawls out begging. It knows your name too and all the dark corners you've tried to forget. I've been married to Mark for 19 years now, and we've done these cross-country drives every summer since the kids were little, packing the Suburban full of snacks and laundry baskets of clothes, hooking up the pop-up camper if we felt ambitious, pointing west or east, depending on whose family we were pretending to visit that year. This time it was supposed to be a big one, leaving Ohio after the 4th, cutting across Indiana, Illinois, Iowa, then straight through Nebraska on I-80 until we hit Colorado, maybe push on to Utah before turning north to see my sister in Boise. The kids are older now, Ethan 17, already taller than his dad and glued to his phone, Lily 14 going on 25, earbuds in permanent residence. Mark and I figured this might be the last trip they'd agree to without too much eye-rolling, so we loaded up on audiobooks and bad roadside diners and told ourselves it would be good for us, all that forced togetherness. We were somewhere west of Lincoln, Nebraska, on the 3rd night, when things started feeling strange. It had been a long day. Left Des Moines late because Ethan forgot his charger and we had to circle back, and the sun was already gone by the time we crossed the state line. The highway was mostly empty, just the occasional semi rumbling past, headlights carving out tunnels in the dark. Mark was driving. I was navigating with the atlas even though the GPS worked fine, because I still like seeing the whole page of where we're going. The kids were half asleep in the back seat, Lily's head against the window, Ethan scrolling with the screen dimmed. I remember noticing how quiet it was. No wind even, just the steady hum of tires and the faint click of Mark's turn signal when he adjusted lanes. That's when I first saw the truck. It was a full-size pickup, older model, dark paint, maybe black or deep green, riding about a quarter-mile back, headlights steady, not gaining or falling behind. Nothing unusual at first, lots of pickups in Nebraska. But after 10 minutes it was still there, same distance, same lane. I glanced in the side mirror a few times, told myself I was being paranoid because we'd listened to that true crime podcast all afternoon. Mark noticed too, eventually. He said something casual like, "Guy's got cruise control dialed in perfect," but I heard the slight edge in his voice. We both kept watching. Around North Platte we pulled off for gas and bathrooms, one of those big travel plazas with the bright lights and the attached McDonald's. The pickup followed us off the ramp, slow, turned into the lot but parked way out by the semis, engine running, lights off now. We couldn't see the driver, tinted windows, silhouette only. Mark filled the tank while I took Lily inside. Ethan stayed in the car charging his phone. I kept looking over my shoulder, expecting someone to walk toward us, but no one got out. When we piled back in and pulled onto the interstate, the truck waited a minute, then eased in behind us again. Same distance, like it had never stopped. Mark tried to shake it. He sped up to 80, then slowed to 65, changed lanes a couple times. The pickup matched every move, never closer, never farther. No high beams, no aggressive tailgating, just patient, steady pursuit. The kids noticed eventually. Lily pulled her earbuds out and asked what was wrong. Ethan craned around, said, "Some creeps following us?" Mark told them it was nothing, probably just heading the same direction, but his knuckles were white on the wheel. I called the Nebraska State Patrol non-emergency number I found online, explained the situation calm as I could. The dispatcher was polite, said they'd send a trooper to look for us, asked our mile marker. We were past North Platte now, heading toward Ogallala, nothing but flat darkness and the occasional grain silo sliding by. We never saw the trooper. The pickup stayed with us the whole time, visible in the mirrors like a shadow we couldn't outrun. Around 2 a.m, we decided to get off again, find a motel, let whoever it was pass. Took the Ogallala exit, rolled into town quiet, pulled into the first place with a vacancy sign, a small independent motel with exterior doors and a flickering office light. The pickup took the exit too, slow, but instead of following us into the lot, it kept going straight through the intersection, taillights disappearing down the main drag. We sat there a minute, engine running, waiting to see if it circled back. Nothing. Mark said maybe we'd lost it. We checked in, got 2 adjoining rooms, carried the kids' bags inside half asleep. I locked everything twice, checked the windows, peeked through the curtains every few minutes. No truck. We crashed hard, told ourselves it was over. Next morning we left early, grabbed coffee at the gas station across the street, hit the road before 8. The pickup was waiting. It was parked across the lot when we pulled out, driver's side facing us, engine idling. As soon as Mark turned onto the road, it pulled out behind, same measured distance. No wave, no flash of lights, just there again. My stomach dropped. Mark didn't say much, just merged back onto 80 westbound and kept it at 75. The kids were quiet now, sensing the tension. I tried the state patrol again, different dispatcher this time. They took the report, said they'd alert units between Ogallala and Sydney, asked for the plate number. I couldn't read it. Too far, too dirty. Nebraska plates, but nothing clear. The truck hung back just far enough to stay unreadable. We drove like that all morning, the pickup always there, sometimes dropping back a half mile when a semi got between us, then easing up again once the lane cleared. Mark tried calling friends back home, seeing if anyone knew how to handle this, but the advice was the same: keep driving, document everything, find a populated stop. Around Sydney, we pulled into another big travel center, busy with trucks and families. The pickup followed off the ramp but parked out by the edge again, lights off. We went inside, used the bathrooms, bought sandwiches we didn't eat. I walked to the customer service desk, explained quiet to the clerk, asked if they could call local police. She did, sympathetic, said an officer would swing by. We waited 40 minutes. No cop showed. When we left, the truck was gone. We thought we'd finally ditched it. Drove another hour toward Cheyenne, relief creeping in, kids relaxing a little. Then, just past Pine Bluffs, it reappeared, sliding out from behind a slow-moving RV like it had been waiting for the right moment. Same truck, same silhouette. Mark swore under his breath. I felt the panic rise sharp this time, because now it wasn't coincidence. Whoever it was knew how to hide, how to wait, how to come back without being seen pulling out. The rest of that day blurred. We pushed hard, skipped stops, took turns driving so we wouldn't have to pull over after dark. The pickup kept pace, patient, never aggressive enough to give troopers probable cause if they ever showed. We called Wyoming Highway Patrol outside Cheyenne, Colorado State Patrol once we crossed the line. Same routine. Reports taken, promises made, no cars ever materialized. Night fell somewhere west of Denver, mountains rising black against the stars. We decided to skip the camper hookup, find a chain hotel in a city with people around. Pulled into a busy Holiday Inn Express off I-25 in Loveland around 11, lot full of cars. The pickup followed us into town but turned off a block early, vanished into the grid. We checked in fast, dragged the bags up, ordered pizza to the room. Kids showered and crashed. Mark and I sat up whispering, watching the parking lot from the second-floor window. Nothing moved. We told ourselves we were safe, doors chained, deadbolt thrown, phone charged beside the bed with 911 ready. I finally dozed off around 2, exhausted. Woke to Lily screaming at dawn. She'd gone out to the vending area for ice, door propped with the security latch. Said she saw the truck parked directly below our window. Driver staring up at our room, unmoving. By the time she ran back in and got us, it was gone again. No one else in the hall heard anything. Front desk said no complaints. We packed in 10 minutes, left without breakfast, hit the road shaking. The pickup joined us before we reached Fort Collins, sliding in from a side street like it knew exactly when we'd emerge. That was 4 days ago. We're still driving west, haven't stopped for more than gas since, taking shifts, barely sleeping. The truck is always there now, closer sometimes, letting us see the outline of a single driver, male, ball cap, no visible features. It disappears when we enter towns, reappears when we leave. State lines don't matter. We've called every agency along the route, filed reports, sent photos when we could grab a blurry one. Nothing comes of it. The kids don't talk much anymore. Lily cries quiet in the back. Ethan stares out the window like he's memorizing the plate he still can't read. Last night we tried something desperate. Pulled into a big Walmart outside Salt Lake, parked among hundreds of cars, waited until closing, then slept in the Suburban in the far corner of the lot. Woke to find a note under the wiper. A single Polaroid of us sleeping, taken from outside the driver's window, time-stamped 3 hours earlier. No footprints around the car, no dew disturbed. We left before sunrise, tires spinning gravel. We're in Idaho now, almost to Boise, running on fumes and fear. The truck is 3 cars back as I type this on my phone in a library parking lot while Mark fuels up across the street. I can see it in the side mirror, idling at the curb, waiting. My sister's house is 20 minutes away, but we're afraid to lead it there. We don't know what he wants. Hasn't tried to run us off, hasn't approached, just watches, waits, follows. Like he's enjoying the drive as much as we're dreading it. If we stop posting updates, check I-80 westbound between Lincoln and Salt Lake. Look for a silver Suburban with Ohio plates and a dark older pickup that never quite catches up but never falls behind. Tell the kids we love them if we don't make the next exit. And whatever you do, don't pull over thinking you can confront him. He's patient. He's been waiting a long time. We made it to my sister's that afternoon, pulled into her driveway in Boise with the truck nowhere in sight for the first time in days. But we didn't relax, not really, because by then we knew better than to think it was gone for good. She met us at the door, confused by how ragged we looked, how the kids clung close instead of running inside like usual, and when we explained in hushed tones over coffee in her kitchen, she suggested calling the local police, maybe getting a restraining order or something. But Mark shook his head because, how do you restrain someone you can't identify, someone who slips away every time authority gets close? We stayed inside all evening, windows locked, blinds drawn, telling the kids it was just a precaution, but Lily wouldn't eat, and Ethan kept checking his phone like he expected a message from the driver himself, some taunt popping up uninvited. That night I lay awake listening to every car passing on the street, wondering if one would slow, idle, watch the house from the curb without headlights. And sure enough, around 3 a.m., I heard the low rumble of an engine outside, peeked through a slit in the blinds, and there it was. The dark pickup parked across the road, driver's silhouette visible under the streetlight, head turned toward our window like he could see right through the walls. We left Boise 2 days later, cut the visit short because my sister started getting nervous too. Said she'd seen a similar truck circling the neighborhood during her morning jog, though she couldn't be sure it was the same one. We headed north on 84 toward Oregon, thinking maybe changing direction would throw him off, but he reappeared before we hit the state line, easing out from a rest area like he'd anticipated the move. Mark drove faster that day, weaving through traffic more aggressively, but the pickup adapted seamless, always finding a gap to slip back into view, and for the first time it got closer, close enough at one point that I could make out scratches on the hood, dents along the side like it had been in scrapes before, maybe worse than just fender benders. Ethan tried snapping a clear photo with his zoom, but the plates were muddy, deliberate, numbers blurred under grime, and when he posted it to a forum asking for help identifying make the responses were useless. Old Ford or Chevy, common as dirt out west. Lily started asking questions we couldn't answer, like why he picked us, if we knew him from somewhere, and Mark snapped at her to drop it, which only made her withdraw more, curling up in the back with her hoodie pulled low, whispering to herself sometimes like she was rehearsing what she'd say if he ever stopped us. Somewhere east of Pendleton, the aggression ramped up subtle at first. He started flashing his high beams when no one was ahead. Brief bursts that lit up our mirrors and made Mark squint, then longer ones that blinded us for seconds at a time, forcing Mark to slow and weave a little. We called Oregon State Patrol, described it as harassment now, but the connection dropped mid-call, and when we tried again, the signal was gone, nothing but dead zones through the hills. The flashing continued sporadic, and then he bumped us, light at first, just a tap on the rear bumper when Mark braked for a curve, but enough to jolt the car and make Lily yelp. Mark accelerated away, but the truck caught up easy, tapped again harder, metal grinding brief against our hitch. Ethan yelled to pull over and confront him, but I told him no, that's what he wants, to get us stopped and isolated. And Mark agreed, kept driving though his hands shook on the wheel now. The bumps came more frequent after that, each one shoving us forward a bit, the Suburban fishtailing once on a wet patch, and I could hear the kids breathing fast in the back, Lily clutching Ethan's arm like she hadn't since they were small. We made it to a truck stop outside La Grande around dusk, lot full of rigs and cars, figured safety in numbers. But as we parked the pickup, pulled in slow behind us, stopped blocking our exit, engine revving high like a threat. Mark told us to stay put, climbed out and walked toward it yelling for the driver to show himself, but the windows stayed tinted, no response, just that idle rumbling louder. A couple truckers noticed, started wandering over asking if there was trouble, and only then did the pickup reverse slow, turn, and peel out of the lot with tires squealing, leaving black marks on the pavement. We explained to the truckers, shaky, and they suggested traveling in convoy, but their runs were south and we needed west, so we thanked them and went inside for food we barely touched, watching the entrance the whole time. When we left an hour later, the truck was waiting down the road, headlights off until we passed, then flicking on and accelerating smooth to resume the tail. The violence escalated crossing into Washington, where the roads twisted more through the Cascades, giving him opportunities to close in on the turns. He rammed us proper then, full contact on a downhill straight, crunching the rear bumper and shattering a taillight, glass scattering across the asphalt as Mark fought to keep control. Lily screamed that time, real terror, and Ethan unbuckled like he was going to do something stupid, but I yelled at him to sit down. Mark pulled over after, hazards on, inspected the damage while I called 911, but the operator said units were 20 minutes out and advised us to drive to the nearest station if we could. The pickup had stopped 100 yards back, idling, watching, and when Mark got back in, we drove on slow, the car rattling from the impact. He hit us twice more before Spokane, each ram harder, buckling the hatch and cracking the rear window, shards falling into the cargo area where our bags shifted loose. Blood appeared on Lily's hand from a cut glass piece, small but bleeding steady, and she wrapped it in a napkin, sobbing quiet while Ethan held her, his face pale and set like he was holding back rage. We holed up in a motel in Spokane that night, parked the Suburban out of sight behind the building, but around midnight we heard the engine outside, circling the lot slow, then a thud against the wall like something thrown. Turned out to be a rock through our room window, glass exploding inward and showering the bed where the kids slept. Mark grabbed a lamp as a weapon. I dialed 911 again, but by the time sirens approached, the truck was gone, leaving us to explain to the cops who arrived too late, showing them the dents and the photo under the wiper from before. But they said without a plate or description it was hard to pursue, suggested we fly home instead. We considered it, but tickets for 4 last minute were too much, and abandoning the car felt like letting him win, so we patched the window with tape from the front desk and drove on at dawn, the pickup joining us before we hit the interstate. Closer now, bumpers almost kissing at stops. In the days since it's gotten worse, the rams more frequent and vicious, crumpling the rear end until the hatch won't close right. And last night outside Seattle he sideswiped us on a merge, grinding paint and sparking metal, forcing Mark into the guardrail with a screech that left tire marks and a bent fender. Ethan got a bruise on his shoulder from the impact. Lily's cut reopened and bled through the bandage, and Mark's hands are raw from gripping the wheel through it all. We've stopped calling police because they never catch up. Just take statements at stops where the truck vanishes temporary. And now we're limping toward the coast. Car damaged bad. Kids traumatized silent, wondering if he'll force us off entirely next time. Into a ditch, or worse. The Polaroids keep appearing, under the wiper at gas stops, showing us at diners or motels. One even of Lily, alone in a bathroom stall. Her face turned away, but recognizable. He's inside our space now, not just following, but invading. And as I type this on a borrowed library computer in Tacoma, while Mark gets the bumper wired together at a shop, I see him across the street, parked blatant. Driver watching through the windshield for the first time. Face obscured by the cap, but eyes locked on the door like he's counting the minutes until we move again. We're turning back east tomorrow. No choice but to head home and hope distance breaks it. But I know he'll follow, ramming harder each state, wearing us down until something gives. The car, our nerves, one of us. Ethan talks about fighting back now, grabbing a tire iron next stop. But Mark says that's suicide. The guy's prepared, probably armed, and Lily just begs to go home, her voice small and broken. The violence isn't just the hits anymore, it's the waiting between, the knowing he's choosing when to strike, drawing it out like punishment for something we don't remember doing. If we don't make it back to Ohio, check the wrecks along a 90 eastbound, look for the silver Suburban crumpled on the shoulder with Ohio plates and signs of repeated rear-end damage. Tell my sister we tried, and if you see a dark pickup trailing close behind a family rig at night, don't intervene. He might turn on you next. I've been making this drive from Flagstaff back to Phoenix every break since freshman year. 4 hours down I-17 through the pines and then the long drop into the desert where the air gets thick and hot even at night. It's the same route every time. Leave campus around dusk after finals, stop once for coffee in Camp Verde, blast whatever playlist will keep me awake until the valley lights start glowing on the horizon. I know every curve past Sunset Point, every pullout where the semis park to chain up in winter, every mile marker that ticks down like a countdown to home. Nothing changes. The road's just asphalt and reflectors and the occasional deer eyes flashing red in the headlights. I've done it half asleep, hungover, crying after breakups, laughing on the phone with friends. It's my road. Or it was, until that night last December when I came home for winter break. I'd finished my last exam around 4, packed the Civic quick, duffel in the trunk, backpack on the passenger seat, couple Red Bulls in the cup holders, and hit the highway before the sun fully dropped. Traffic was light, mostly locals heading south and a few trucks hauling Christmas trees north. Snow dusted the shoulders up high, but the pavement was clear, temperature hovering just above freezing. I had the heat cranked, radio on some alt station out of Prescott fading in and out, windows fogging a little from my breath. I was somewhere past the Badger Springs exit, maybe 20 miles north of Black Canyon City, when I saw her. At first I thought it was a deer standing in the median, something pale catching my headlights, motionless between the lanes. But as I got closer I saw it was a person, a young woman, standing dead center on the dotted white line separating north and southbound. She wore a thin white dress, summer weight, barefoot, arms loose at her sides, facing my direction. No car pulled over, no hazards blinking, no reason for anyone to be out there at 9 at night in 30-degree weather. I eased off the gas, checked my mirrors, nobody behind me close, and flicked my brights to warn her off the road. She didn't move, didn't flinch at the light. Just stood there, hair long and dark, hanging still despite the trucks passing and pushing air. I slowed more, rolled past at maybe 30, close enough to see her face in the sweep of my headlights. She was young, my age, early 20s, skin pale, almost blue, eyes wide open and fixed straight ahead. Not on my car, but through it, like she was watching something farther down the highway. No blood, no obvious injury, but her dress was damp at the hem, clinging to her legs like she'd walked through water, and her feet were dark with dirt, or worse. I hit the hazards, pulled onto the shoulder 100 yards past her, heart already going hard, because you don't see people standing in the middle of interstate traffic without something being terribly wrong. I sat there a minute, watching in the rear view. She hadn't turned, hadn't stepped toward the side. Trucks barreled by, drivers probably swearing or honking. but she stayed planted, small and alone between the lanes. I grabbed my phone, no signal of course, dead zone until Cordes Junction, and my flashlight from the glove box climbed out. The cold hit immediate, dry and sharp, wind coming down off the mountains carrying pine smell and diesel. I walked back slow along the shoulder, boots crunching on gravel, calling out as I got closer. "Hey, you okay? You need help?" My voice got swallowed fast by the passing traffic. She didn't react, didn't turn her head, just kept staring south, eyes unblinking even as an 18-wheeler blasted past and rocked her dress slight. I got within 20 feet, shined the light low so I wouldn't blind her. "Miss, can you hear me?" Nothing. Her skin looked wrong up close, too smooth, too pale, like porcelain under the beam, and her lips had a faint blue tint, but she was breathing, slow clouds forming and fading in front of her mouth. I stepped off the shoulder, careful, traffic still thundering by. "Hey, come on, you can't stay here. It's not safe." I reached out, touched her arm light. Her skin was cold, way colder than the air, like she'd been standing out there hours, not minutes. She turned then, slow, mechanical, head swiveling toward me while her body stayed facing the highway. Her eyes locked on mine, wide and dark, pupils huge, and for a second I thought she was going to speak, going to explain, but she only opened her mouth a little, no sound, just breath fogging thicker now. I asked if she was hurt, if there'd been an accident, if someone left her here. Nothing. She lifted one arm slow, pointed past me down the southbound lanes, finger trembling slight, then dropped it again. That's when I noticed her feet. They weren't touching the ground. Not quite. Hovering maybe an inch above the asphalt, toes pointed down but not making contact, like the pavement repelled her or she'd forgotten how to stand proper. I looked hard, told myself it was shadow from the headlights, angle of the slope, anything. But when another truck passed, the air moved her dress and her legs stayed perfectly still. No shift of weight, no balance adjustment. I backed up a step, asked what she wanted, what happened. She tilted her head slight, eyes never leaving mine, then turned her whole body toward me smooth, no pivot, like gliding on ice. She took a step forward, not walking, more floating, and I saw the asphalt under her feet darken, wet patches spreading where she'd been, like condensation or melted frost, but darker, almost black in the flashlight beam. I don't remember deciding to run. I just turned and jogged back to the car, climbed in, locked the doors like that would help on an open highway. Sat there breathing hard, watching the mirrors. She was still in the median, facing my car now, arms down, head cocked the same angle. A semi rolled between us, blocking view for a second, and when it passed, she was closer, 10 feet onto the shoulder, same posture, same stare. Another truck, another blink, and she'd moved again, now at the fog line, white dress glowing under someone's high beams. I started the engine, pulled onto the road slow, half expecting her to step in front, but she didn't, just watched as I accelerated away, shrinking in the rear view until the curve took her out of sight. I drove the rest of the way doing 85, hands shaking on the wheel, checking mirrors every few seconds like she might appear in the back seat. Made it home around midnight. Didn't tell my parents much. Just said finals were rough and I needed sleep. Crashed hard. Woke up sweating from dreams of pale hands on the windshield, eyes staring through the glass from outside. I avoided the drive north for a while, flew back after break instead, told myself it was exhaustion, hallucination from too much caffeine and not enough sleep. But spring semester I had to come home again for a funeral, took the same route late at night to beat traffic. Told myself it was fine. Different season, clear roads. I was past Black Canyon City, climbing toward Sunset Point, when I saw her again, standing in the same spot, median center, white dress bright against the dark, facing south like she'd never left. I didn't slow this time. Kept my eyes forward, foot steady on the gas, watched her shrink in the mirror until the pines swallowed the view. She's been there every trip since, sometimes closer to the edge, sometimes farther back in the median, always the same dress, same posture, same unblinking stare. Once, coming south in rain, the highway slick and shining, I saw wet tracks leading from the median to the shoulder, barefoot prints filling slow with water, ending abrupt like she'd stepped up into nothing. Another time, northbound at dawn, she was facing the wrong way, toward oncoming traffic, arms out slight like waiting for an embrace that never came. I looked her up eventually, during finals week when I couldn't sleep. Searched missing persons, Arizona, young women, I-17 corridor. Found a hit from 4 years ago, Sophia Reyes, 21, NAU student like me, disappeared after leaving a party in Flagstaff. Car found abandoned at the Badger Springs rest area, keys in the ignition, purse on the seat, no note, no struggle. Search went on weeks, dogs and helicopters. But the desert takes what it wants. Case still open, family still posts every anniversary. I drive that stretch different now. Windows up, music off, eyes forward. I don't look in the median anymore, don't check the mirrors too long. But I feel her watching every time, waiting for the one car that stops, the one driver who tries to help. I'm almost done with school. One more year. Then I'll find another way home. Or maybe never come back. If you take I-17 at night between Phoenix and Flagstaff, keep going. Don't slow for the girl in white standing between the lanes. She isn't lost. She's waiting for someone to join her. I wrote most of this a few nights ago in the library on campus because the dorm felt too quiet and I needed fluorescent lights and people around. But I didn't post it then. Kept rereading, deleting parts, telling myself I'd imagined the details. Last night I drove home again for summer, left late to avoid traffic. Same route because the other passes were closed for construction. Told myself it would be fine, daylight almost until Cordes. But clouds rolled in early, dark by 8, rain starting as I dropped out of the mountains. She was there sooner this time, closer to Black Canyon City, standing not in the median but on the shoulder, right at the fog line, facing my lane. Dress plastered to her body from the rain, hair dripping but unmoving, feet still that inch above the ground. I kept speed steady, 75, wipers going hard. As I passed, she turned her head smooth, followed the car, and in the rear view, I saw her step onto the asphalt, one foot, then the other. Wet prints blooming dark behind her as she started walking south, slow but steady, dress trailing water that steamed faint in the cold. I watched until the rain blurred everything, until the curve took her away. But when I glanced at the passenger seat, there was a damp spot on the upholstery. Small and round, like a barefoot print pressed into the fabric while I wasn't looking. It's still there now, cold to the touch, smelling faintly of wet earth and pine. I'm home for the summer, parked in the driveway typing this on my laptop with the doors locked, afraid to go inside yet because every light in the house looks too much like headlights. If I don't start school again in fall, check the rest area at Badger Springs. Look for my Civic with the NAU sticker, keys probably still in it. And whatever you do, don't pick her up. She's not trying to get home anymore. That was 2 weeks ago, and I've been putting off the drive back north ever since, crashing on friends' couches in Phoenix, making excuses about summer jobs or family stuff when my roommate texts asking where I am. But classes start soon, and I can't avoid it forever, so last night I loaded the car again, left after midnight thinking the dark might be better or worse. I don't know. The rain had stopped days ago, air dry and warm down in the valley. But as I climbed the grade toward the pines, the temperature dropped sharp, fog rolling in thick from the canyons until the headlights barely cut 20 feet ahead. I kept the defroster blasting, hands tight on the wheel, telling myself she wouldn't be there in fog, that visibility would hide her or something. She wasn't in the median this time. She was in the road, standing dead center in my lane, white dress glowing soft in the fog like a low beam of its own, arms at her sides, head tilted down so the hair curtained her face. I slammed the brakes, tires locking brief on the damp pavement, car fishtailing a little before stopping 10 feet short. She didn't move, didn't brace against the sudden light washing over her, just stood there unmoving as the engine idled rough and my heart hammered loud enough I could hear it over the fan. I sat frozen, hazards clicking slow, waiting for her to step aside or turn or anything human. But she lifted her head gradual, hair parting to show those wide dark eyes fixed on the windshield, on me, pupils swallowing the irises until there was almost no color left. The fog swirled around her legs, but her feet, still that inch off the ground, left no disturbance in the mist, no eddy or break like a real body would. I eased the car into reverse, planning to back up and go around, but the transmission whined and nothing happened, like the wheels spun on ice through the road was clear. Forward gear, same, engine revving, but the car stuck in place, rocking slight like something held the frame. She took a step then, gliding forward until she was at the hood, one pale hand rising slow to press palm flat against the metal. The touch left a print that spread frost instant across the paint, spiderwebbing outward in veins thick and white, creeping toward the windshield as the defroster struggled and failed. Her face was inches from the glass now, breath fogging nothing because she didn't breathe anymore, mouth opening wider than should be possible, showing darkness inside that seemed deeper than a throat had right to be. I killed the engine, grabbed my keys, bolted out the driver's door into the fog, ran south along the shoulder without looking back, boots slipping on loose gravel until a semi's air horns blasted close, and I dove into the ditch. The truck thundered past. Driver probably never saw me or her, and when I climbed up shaking, the car was empty in the lane, headlights still on, driver door hanging open, but no sign of her, no prints, no frost, just the engine ticking cool in the silence. I walked back slow, peered inside. The passenger seat was soaked now, fabric dark and dripping slow onto the floor mat, the barefoot print deeper, outlined perfect like pressed-in wet clay, and in the condensation on the inside of the windshield, someone had traced letters backward. Help me find him. I drove the rest of the way with the windows down despite the cold, music blaring to cover any sound from the back, arrived in Flagstaff at dawn and haven't left the apartment since. The print dried eventually, but left a stain that smells like river water and decay when the sun hits it. And sometimes when I'm alone, I hear faint footsteps on the roof of the car in the parking lot, soft padding that stops when I look out the window. She's not waiting on the highway anymore. She's closer now, following the one who saw her too clear, the one who touched her arm and felt how far gone she really is. I've got one more semester. If I disappear before graduation, check my Civic in the campus lot. Don't touch the passenger seat. Whatever's sitting there waiting isn't Sophia anymore, and it's looking for the person who left her on the road that night 4 years ago. I think it's starting to wonder if that person might be me. We'd been on the road for about 6 hours already that Friday night. Me, Josh, Carla, and Nate, crammed into Josh's old Tahoe heading south on I-35 from Minneapolis toward Austin for a music festival we'd been talking up all winter. I was in the back with Carla, half dozing against the window while Nate shotgun navigated with his phone, arguing with Josh about detours around construction. We were all a little buzzed from the beers at the last stop in Des Moines, nothing heavy, just enough to make the miles feel shorter, and the highway was dark and straight, semis humming past every now and then under a sky thick with clouds that blocked the stars. Nobody was paying much attention when we saw her, standing on the shoulder just past an exit ramp somewhere south of Ames, thumb out, backpack slung low, looking soaked from the light rain that had started spitting an hour back. Josh slowed without asking, pulled over a bit ahead because that's how he is, always the one to stop for strays or hitchers like it's some code from his farm kid days. Carla muttered something about it being stupid, especially at night with a woman in the car, but Nate shrugged and said she looked harmless, maybe 20s, jeans and a hooded sweatshirt, hair plastered down from the wet. I didn't say much, just watched as Josh rolled down the window and called out asking where she was headed. She walked up quick, leaned in close enough I could smell the damp earth on her, said anywhere south, voice flat but polite, like she'd said it 100 times. Josh glanced back at us, got nods all around because what else do you do? Leave her out there in the rain. She climbed in the back next to me, backpack on her lap, thanked us quiet, and settled in staring straight ahead as we pulled away. At first it was fine, awkward small talk mostly. Her name was Sarah, she said, coming from a bad breakup in Iowa City, needed to get to Kansas City for a cousin who'd pick her up. Carla offered her a water bottle from the cooler. She took it but didn't drink, just held it tight in her hands, twisting the cap on and off like a tick. Nate tried joking about the festival, asking if she liked indie bands, but she didn't respond much, kept glancing out the window at the passing fields, muttering now and then about headlights behind us being too close. Josh turned up the radio to fill the quiet, some classic rock station cutting in and out, and we drove like that for maybe 40 minutes, rain picking up steady against the windshield. I noticed her hands then, nails chewed raw, fingers twitching constant, picking at the backpack zipper, and the way her eyes darted to the mirrors every time a car approached, like she expected something to ram us from behind. Things shifted around Albert Lee when she started talking more, voice dropping low so only I could hear at first. Leaning close enough, her breath hit my ear, warm and sour. She said people were following her, had been for days, that her ex wasn't just bad but connected, had friends in trucks watching the highways. I nodded polite, figured she was paranoid from whatever mess she'd left, maybe high on something mild. But Carla overheard and asked what she meant. And Sarah turned sharp, eyes narrowing, said we didn't get it, that the semis passing were signals, horns blaring codes about where she was. Josh laughed it off from the front, told her to relax. We were just going to the festival. No drama, but she didn't laugh, just stared at him in the rear view until he looked away uncomfortable. Nate changed the subject to food stops, but she kept muttering, louder now, about bugs in her phone, though she didn't have one out, and how the rain was laced with chemicals to track people like her. By the time we crossed into Minnesota's south edge, she was scratching at her arms hard, sleeves pushed up showing red welts like she'd been at it for hours, whispering about cameras in the taillights of cars ahead. Carla shifted away, gave me a look like what the hell did we pick up, and I felt the tension build slow in the cab, the kind where nobody wants to say stop, but everyone's thinking it. Josh pulled over at a rest area near Owatonna for bathrooms and gas, and while Sarah went inside, we huddled by the pump, Nate saying she seemed off, maybe tweaking on meth or something from the way her jaw clenched constant and her pupils pinned small, even in the dark. Carla wanted to leave her there, said it wasn't our problem, but Josh argued we couldn't just ditch her in the middle of nowhere, especially raining, that we'd drop her at the next big town. I agreed half-hearted, figuring another hour wouldn't kill us, but when she came back out she was agitated worse, pacing by the car insisting we leave now because the attendant inside had eyed her funny, probably called her ex. We got back on the road tense, Sarah in the middle now because Carla switched sides to get away, and almost immediate she started accusing us, low at first, saying we were part of it, that Josh's detour talk earlier was a code, that the water Carla gave her tasted wrong, like it was spiked to make her talk. Nate told her to chill, voice firm, but she ignored him, turned to me grabbing my arm hard enough to leave marks, nails digging in as she leaned close asking if I was recording, if the backpack had a tracker. I pulled away, told her no, we're just friends on a trip, but she didn't buy it, started rummaging through her bag, pulling out crumpled papers, old receipts, napkins with scribbles, shoving them at Carla saying, "Look, proof, the numbers match license plates we'd passed." Josh told her to knock it off or we'd let her out, but she laughed harsh, said we couldn't. We were in too deep now that her ex would find us too if we ditched her. It escalated fast after that, somewhere past Faribault, when she lunged forward sudden, grabbing at the wheel from between the seats, yanking it hard toward the median, screaming that the car behind was one of them, had to swerve off. Josh fought her off, the Tahoe fishtailing across lanes, horns blaring as a semi clipped our mirror close. Nate twisted around, grabbed her arms pinning them while Carla yelled to stop the car, and I helped hold her down as she thrashed wild, kicking at the seats, spitting that we were all gonna die if we didn't listen. Josh pulled over rough onto the shoulder, brakes locking, and we dragged her out into the rain, her backpack spilling junk across the gravel. She screamed we were killers, that she'd make us pay, but Josh shoved her back when she swung at him, told her to walk, we were done. She stood there soaked as we piled in, locked the doors, and peeled out, leaving her yelling in the mirrors until the dark took her. We drove silent for a bit, everyone breathing heavy, Carla rubbing her arm where Sarah had scratched deep enough to draw blood, Nate saying we should have never stopped, Josh muttering apologies like it was his fault. I kept checking the rear view expecting to see her running after us or something crazy, but the road stayed empty, rain washing everything clean. We stopped at a McDonald's in Northfield to calm down, get food, clean the scratches. Carla's arm looked bad, red and swelling, but she said it was fine, just surface. We talked about calling cops, but what would we say? We picked up a hitcher who flipped out, no real crime yet, so we ate quick and got back on, figuring Austin was only a couple hours more, we'd crash at the motel and forget it. About 30 minutes south past Medford, Nate spotted lights in the mirror, motorcycle headlights gaining fast, weaving through the thin traffic like the rider didn't care about the wet roads. Josh sped up a little, but the bike closed quick, pulled alongside on the left, and in the flash of passing lights we saw her, Sarah, helmetless, hair whipping wild, straddling a big Harley that wasn't hers, probably stolen from the rest area or a bar nearby. She yelled something lost in the wind, pointed at us furious, then dropped back sudden and rammed the rear quarter panel hard, metal grinding as the Tahoe lurched right toward the ditch. Josh corrected sharp, tires hydroplaning brief before gripping, and she fell back a bit but came again faster, this time clipping the bumper with the bike's front tire, forcing us to swerve left into the lane where a car honked and braked hard behind. Panic hit full then, Carla screaming to call 911, Nate fumbling his phone while I twisted to watch, yelling at Josh to floor it. He did, pushing 85 on the slick asphalt, but the bike was nimble, caught up easy. Sarah's face twisted ugly in the headlights as she pulled alongside again, reaching out like she meant to grab the door handle or smash the window. She rammed sideways this time, bike frame slamming our driver's side, denting the door and shattering the mirror in a spray of glass that peppered Josh's arm through the open crack. He yelped but kept control, veered right to push her away, but she anticipated, dropped back and hit the rear again harder, the impact buckling something underneath, the Tahoe fishtailing wild across both lanes as rain sheeted down. We spun once, tires screaming, ended up facing wrong way on the shoulder, engine stalled, headlights cutting fog into the fields. Sarah circled back slow, bike idling loud 50 yards away, her silhouette dark against the approaching traffic lights. Nate got through to dispatch finally, yelling our location, that a crazy woman on a motorcycle was trying to run us off, but she revved high then, charged straight at us like she meant to plow through the grill. Josh cranked the key desperate, engine coughing wet before catching, slammed into reverse backing onto the grass as she swerved last second, clipping the front bumper and spinning out herself into the median mud. We straightened out, peeled south doing 90, passing cars blaring horns, while in the mirror she righted the bike, mud flying, and gave chase again, lights weaving erratic but gaining. The next 20 miles blurred into chaos. She rammed us 3 more times, each hit crumpling metal more, the Tahoe rattling bad from the damage, rear axle grinding like it might snap. Carla's arm bled steady now, soaking her shirt, and Nate, had a gash on his forehead from banging the dash during a swerve, blood dripping into his eye as he directed Josh to the next exit for a town with lights. Sarah got bolder, pulling up to throw something, a rock or bottle, that cracked the rear window spiderweb, shards falling inside where I brushed them off Carla's lap. She screamed once when the bike came too close, Sarah's hand banging the glass yelling threats about finishing what we started, her face gaunt and wild under the sodium lamps, eyes sunk deep like she hadn't slept in days. We made it to a truck stop in Austin, just as sirens wailed distant, pulled into the lit lot screeching, people scattering as Sarah followed, bike sliding to a stop blocking us in. She dismounted fast, grabbed a tire iron from somewhere, maybe the bike's saddlebag, and advanced on the Tahoe swinging wild, smashing the driver's window in one blow, glass exploding inward over Josh who covered his face too late, cuts opening on his cheeks. Nate jumped out to tackle her, but she swung low, catching his knee hard, bone crunching audible as he dropped yelling. Carla and I locked in the back, her clutching me sobbing, while Josh restarted and rammed forward, clipping the bike and knocking Sarah down into the pavement where she rolled clutching her side. Cops arrived then, 2 cruisers' lights flashing, officers piling out guns drawn yelling for everyone to freeze. Sarah scrambled up limping, dropped the iron, but lunged at one cop scratching his face before they tackled her, cuffed her screaming about conspiracies and how we were the ones who attacked her. We spilled out shaky, Nate on the ground clutching his leg, Carla's arm swollen purple now, Josh bleeding from glass cuts, me just bruised and numb. Paramedics came quick, checked us over while the cops took statements, ran her name. Real one was Megan, not Sarah, wanted for theft and assault in Iowa. Meth in her system confirmed later at the hospital where they stitched us up and x-rayed Nate's knee, fractured bad enough for a cast and crutches. We spent the night in a motel nearby, festival canceled for us, too wrecked to continue, and drove home slow the next day with the Tahoe barely roadworthy, dents and scrapes, telling the story nobody believed until the police report came through. I'm back in Minneapolis now, typing this on a library computer at 2 a.m. Because sleep doesn't come easy. Keep hearing engines revving outside my window, checking locks like she might show up any night. Nate's laid up for weeks. Carla won't drive highways anymore. Josh blames himself quiet. If you pick up hitchers on I-35 at night, think twice. Some aren't running from something. They're bringing it with them. We thought that was the end after the cops hauled her away, kicking and spitting curses at us from the back of the cruiser. Her eyes locked on the Tahoe like she was memorizing every dent we'd added that night. But the hospital released us around dawn with painkillers and warnings to watch for infection on the cuts and scratches. And we crashed in the motel room staring at the ceiling fan spin lazy, while rain tapped the window like fingers testing the glass. Josh tried joking about it over breakfast at the diner next door, saying at least we had a story for the festival we missed, but nobody laughed. Carla just poked at her eggs with her bandaged arm stiff and swollen. Nate propped his cast on a chair, grunting every time he shifted, and I kept glancing out at the parking lot where the Tahoe sat crooked from the bent axle, rear end crumpled like a beer can someone had stomped. The drive home north felt longer than the way down, every motorcycle light in the mirror making us tense up, Josh swerving a little too quick when one passed too close, and by the time we hit the Twin Cities we were all silent, dropping each other off with quick hugs and promises to check in later. But I could see the fear lingering in their eyes like it was in mine. A week went by normal enough, work sucking me back in with overtime to cover the Tahoe repairs Josh was fighting insurance over. Carla texting updates on her arm, which had turned an ugly bruised purple with streaks of red infection creeping up, despite the antibiotics. Nate laid up on his couch, binging shows but complaining the painkillers made his dreams weird, full of revving engines and shadows chasing. I tried forgetting, buried myself in routine, but late nights I'd wake sweating from nightmares where Sarah's face pressed against the window, nails scraping glass slow and deliberate, her mouth opening wide to scream accusations that echoed inside my skull. Then the calls started. Unknown number at first. Heavy breathing on the line when I answered. No voice, just ragged inhales like someone running or raging, hanging up when I asked who it was. Carla got them too, said it sounded like a woman muttering in the background about payback, and Josh found his mailbox stuffed with crumpled napkins covered in scribbled numbers and threats like, "You can't hide the signals," smeared in what looked like blood but turned out to be red marker bled through from the rain. Nate was the first to see her again, hobbling out to his car on crutches for a doctor follow-up when he spotted a motorcycle parked across the street from his apartment, rider in a hood watching him struggle with the door, engine idling low like a growl. He got inside quick, locked up, called the cops, but by the time they arrived, the bike was gone. No plate to trace, just tire marks in the mud from where it had peeled out. We met up that weekend at Josh's place to talk it through, beers untouched on the table as we pieced together the harassment. Slashed tires on Carla's sedan overnight, a rock through my living room window with a note tied saying, "Water tastes funny now, doesn't it?" Josh finding his front door scratched deep like claws had raked it. We called the Austin police for updates, learned Megan had bailed out 2 days after arrest, history of meth-fueled assaults and stalking exes, last seen heading north on a stolen bike matching the one she'd used on us, warrant out but no leads since. The attacks ramped up brutal after that, like she'd been waiting for us to group together again, testing us separate first to build the fear. Carla woke one night to banging on her door, looked out to see Sarah, wild-eyed, thinner now like the drugs had hollowed her more, swinging a crowbar at her car parked in the drive, smashing headlights and denting the hood with blows that echoed loud in the quiet suburb. Carla screamed for her roommate, dialed 911 shaking, but Sarah spotted her in the window, pointed the bar direct and charged the door, ramming it hard enough to splinter the frame before sirens wailed close, and she bolted on the bike hidden down the block. The cops found blood on the crowbar left behind, hers, from a cut hand maybe, and prints matching her file, but she was gone again, vanishing into the city grid like smoke. Josh got it worse 2 nights later, coming home late from a shift to find his garage door pried open, tools scattered, and Sarah waiting inside with a knife from his own set, lunging at him as he stepped in, yelling about how he'd spiked her ride and called her ex. He fought her off barehanded, her blade slicing his forearm deep before he grabbed a wrench and swung hard, catching her shoulder with a crack that dropped her howling. Neighbors heard the commotion, called it in, But she staggered out clutching her arm, mounted the bike one-handed and roared away bleeding, leaving Josh to wrap his wound in a rag while paramedics stitched him up again. 20 stitches this time. Artery nicked close. Nate and I rushed over after his frantic call, found him pale on the couch with cops taking photos of the blood spattered across the concrete floor, her knife left behind like a taunt, fingerprints all over the handle confirming it was her. I knew I was next, locked every window and door that night, slept with a baseball bat by the bed, but she came anyway around 3 a.m., smashing the bedroom window with a brick wrapped in one of those scribbled napkins reading, "Your turn to taste the water." Climbing through the shards, cutting her hands and legs but not caring, charging at me with wild swings as I woke scrambling. She got me good on the thigh with a shard of glass she grabbed from the floor, slicing deep enough blood poured hot down my leg, pain burning like fire as I swung the bat connecting with her ribs, hearing them crack under the impact while she gasped but kept coming, grabbing my throat with bloody hands, squeezing hard until spots danced in my vision. I kneed her gut desperate, felt her grip loosen as she doubled over retching, and I ran for the door yelling for help, neighbors' lights flicking on as she staggered after me, slashing air with the glass. Cops got there fast this time, tackled her in the yard where she fought like an animal, biting one officer's arm deep before they tased her, twitching into submission. She's locked up now, psych eval pending, but the damage sticks. Nate's knee won't heal right, needs surgery maybe. Carla's arm scarred ugly with infection lines that ache in the cold. Josh's cuts pulling tight when he moves, my thigh throbbing constant like a reminder. We don't talk much anymore. Group chat gone silent because every notification makes us jump thinking it's her somehow, and nights I hear motorcycles in the distance revving closer. Check the locks again even though she's behind bars. The cops say she had accomplices maybe, friends from her meth circle who helped with the calls and vandalism, still out there watching. But I think it's just the echo of that night, the way she burrowed into our heads with her paranoia until it became ours. I'm in the library again typing this because home feels exposed, windows too easy to break, and if you see a lone woman hitching on I-35 in the rain, keep driving. She might not be alone in her head, and what's in there could drag you down with her. I've been running this overnight route on US 550 out of Durango for the better part of a decade now, hauling lumber and mining equipment up to Silverton and Are, then whatever tourists or supplies are headed back down the million-dollar highway. It's a brutal stretch even in daylight, narrow lanes carved into the mountainside, sheer drops with no guardrails, switchbacks sharp enough to make rookies puke over the edge. At night, it's worse, fog rolling in from the valleys, snow or ice lurking in the shadows no matter the season, headlights barely cutting through the dark before the next curve swallows you. I know every avalanche chute, every pullout where rigs have gone over, every memorial cross bolted to the rock for drivers who misjudged a turn. Nothing much happens up here except the weather trying to kill you slow. That's what I thought until that run last October when the fog was thick as milk and I came across the family stranded on the side. I was northbound around midnight, climbing slow out of Ouray with a loaded flatbed, chains rattling light on the tires because ice had started forming in patches. Traffic was non-existent, just me and the echo of my Jake brake off the canyon walls. The fog thinned brief in a straight section, and my lights washed over a minivan pulled halfway off the road, hazards blinking faint, driver's door open, steam or smoke curling from under the hood. A man stood beside it waving one arm slow, the other wrapped around a woman who leaned heavy on him, while two kids, small, maybe 8 and 10, huddled close in blankets against the cold. No cell service up here, everyone knows that, and the nearest town was miles back or forward. I eased past, careful, checked the mirrors, then pulled over as far as the shoulder allowed, tires crunching on loose gravel near the drop. I sat idling a minute, watching. The man walked toward me slow, hands visible like he knew truckers get wary, called out thanking me for stopping, said the van overheated bad, radiator blown maybe. Family headed to Durango from a camping trip gone wrong. Wife wasn't feeling good, kids freezing, needed a ride to town, or at least heat until help came. The woman stayed by the van, head down, kids clinging to her legs quiet, too quiet for scared children. Something felt off. The way they all stood perfectly still when not moving. The man's voice flat calm like he'd rehearsed it. But the cold was real, wind whipping down the pass sharp enough to cut. And I've got a daughter about the older kid's age back in Farmington. I told him climb in. I'd take them to Silverton at least. There was a motel and a garage open late. They moved together, no rush, the man helping the woman up the step while the kids followed silent, backpacks small on their shoulders. I cleared junk off the sleeper bench for the children, offered blankets from behind the seat, cranked the heat higher. The cab filled quick with the smell of wet clothes and something underneath, damp earth, maybe blood faint, though no one looked hurt obvious. The man sat passenger, introduced himself as David, wife as Marie, kids as Caleb and Ruth, thanked me again quiet. Marie settled in back with the children, head against the window, breathing slow and shallow, while the kids stared straight ahead unblinking, hands folded neat in their laps. No chatter, no questions, just the engine hum and the chains ticking over pavement. We drove slow through the fog, curves coming blind, me focused hard on the yellow line while David stared out the windshield silent. After 10 minutes, Marie spoke, voice soft, almost whisper, asking if I'd seen anyone behind us, if the lights in the mirror were following. I glanced, saw only my trailer lights reflecting red, told her no, we were alone. She didn't answer, just leaned forward slight, eyes wide in the dash glow, murmuring to the kids that it was okay now. They were safe. But the boy, Caleb, shook his head slow, said they weren't gone, that the mountain kept them close. David turned then, told the boy sharp to be quiet, voice cracking first time, and the cab went still again except for the heater fan. The unease built gradual, the way fog thickens without you noticing. Marie started rocking slight, hands pressing her stomach like pain lived there, whispering about blood on the road, how it called things back. The girl, Ruth, joined in low, same words repeated soft like a chant, while Caleb stared at me in the rearview, eyes too old for his face, saying the driver before me had stopped too, that he'd tried to help but the mountain didn't let go easy. David kept telling them hush, voice tighter each time, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold leaking through the doors. I asked if Marie needed a doctor, if something happened on the trip. But David cut me off quick, said she was just carsick. Altitude maybe. They'd be fine in town. Then the smells shifted, wet earth stronger, mixed with something metallic sharp, and I noticed dark stains on Marie's jacket sleeves, soaked through like she'd held something bleeding. The kids' blankets had patches too, damp and heavy, and when a curved sway shifted them I saw Ruth's hands, palms crusted dark, fingernails black underneath. I eased off the gas subtle, asked direct what happened to the van, if there'd been an accident. David turned slow, face pale and drawn in the green dashlight, said nothing to worry about, just a deer they hit, messy but over. But Marie laughed then, low, broken, saying, no deer, never a deer, that the mountain took what it wanted and gave back worse. The kids started chanting louder, same phrase over and over about blood calling blood, while Marie clutched her stomach harder, rocking faster, and David grabbed my arm sudden, grip cold and clammy, begging me to keep driving, not to stop no matter what. I shook him off, told them calm. We were almost to Silverton, but in the mirror I saw Caleb stand slow in the sleeper, small hands pressing the back window, leaving smears dark and wet that steamed faint in the cold glass. Ruth joined him, palms flat beside his, and Marie turned her head unnatural far, eyes locking on mine in the reflection, whispering that I shouldn't have stopped, that the mountain was hungry again. I hit the brakes careful on a straight patch, pulled onto a wide scenic overlook with a low stone wall, told them everyone out. I'd call for help on the CB, but they needed air or something. David protested loud, said we couldn't stop, they'd find us, but I was already opening the door, cold rushing in thick with fog. The kids didn't move at first, just stared out the back like waiting for something in the dark. Then Marie stood slow, blood seeping fresh through her jacket now, dripping slow onto the floor mat as she herded them toward the door. David followed last, face twisted pleading, saying it wasn't safe outside, that the thing in the van wasn't dead yet. I stepped down, flashlight in hand, shined it toward their minivan still visible faint in the distance behind us. No, wait. We'd driven miles. It shouldn't be visible. But there it was. Hazard still blinking weak through the fog, closer than physics allowed. The family stood clustered by the passenger door, Marie swaying, kids holding her hands tight, David whispering urgent like praying. Then Marie doubled over sudden, retching dark fluid onto the gravel, thick and wrong, smelling of iron and rot, while the kids tilted their heads identical, watching me with eyes that reflected my light flat and dead. David backed away, slow, said sorry, quiet, that they didn't mean to bring it with them, but the mountain kept the worst parts and sent the rest walking. I backed toward the cab, told them stay there, I'd get help. But Marie straightened slow, mouth and chin dark with what she'd coughed, smiling faint like relief, and said I was kind for stopping, that the hunger would pass now. The kids let go her hands, took steps toward me synchronized, small feet leaving wet prints that steamed on the cold stone, while David turned away sobbing into the fog. I climbed in fast, locked the doors, started the engine shaking, pulled away, slow watching in the mirrors as they stood waving gentle. Marie's jacket open now showing the ruin underneath. Guts torn deep, impossible she'd walked, let alone sat hours. But still standing, still smiling as the overlook disappeared in the fog. I made Silverton white-knuckled, called troopers from the motel lot, told them about the stranded family, gave the mile marker approximate. They found the minivan hours later, overturned in Red Mountain Pass from days earlier, family of 4 dead on impact, bodies ejected and scavenged by animals. Coroner said exposure and trauma finished what the crash started. No survivors, no one walking away. But the cab still smells faint of earth and blood when the heater runs, and sometimes on quiet nights climbing that stretch, I see small handprints on the inside of the back window, steaming slow in the cold, or hear children chanting soft under the engine noise about the mountain being hungry again. I don't stop for anyone now, not in the fog, not on 550 after dark. I'm parked in a library lot in Durango typing this on a borrowed laptop because the motel felt too exposed, keep hearing bikes revving in the distance even though it's quiet. If you drive the $1 Million Highway at night and see a family waving beside a stalled van in the rain or snow, keep going. The mountain doesn't let go easy, and what it sends walking isn't looking for help anymore. It's looking for company. I tried putting it behind me after that run, told myself exhaustion and fog played tricks, that the family was real but the details warped in my head from too many hours alone with the road whispering what-ifs through the vents. But the next haul north a week later, the prints were back on the window, small palms outlined in condensation that didn't wipe clean, leaving smears that smelled faintly of rot when I rubbed them. I stopped in Silverton early, cleaned the cab top to bottom with bleach from the hardware store, scrubbed until my hands burned raw, but by dawn the stains had seeped back, darker now, like the glass remembered the touch and wouldn't let go. The motel clerk there, old guy who'd seen every driver story twice, listened when I asked quiet about crashes on the pass, said yeah, that family from Utah. Van went over the edge after hitting black ice, bodies mangled bad from the roll in the rocks below, took days to recover what was left because coyotes and bears got there first, scattered pieces across the canyon floor in ways that didn't make sense for just a fall. He said locals whispered about it still, how the search teams found footprints leading away from the wreck, small ones like children's, barefoot in the snow, circling back to the van as if looking for something lost, but no tracks leading out, just ending abrupt in the powder like whoever made them stepped up into nothing. I didn't tell him about my passengers, just nodded and drove back south, careful, eyes forward, but halfway down near the overlook where I'd stopped, the fog rolled in thick again, and in the mirrors I caught shapes moving parallel in the tree line, low and quick, like kids running to keep pace, blankets trailing dark in the wind. I sped up, ignored the sway of the empty trailer on the curves, but the CB crackled static then, voices bleeding under, soft chants about blood and hunger, a woman's whisper asking if I'd seen them, if they were safe now. The disturbances got worse with every run, like the mountain had marked the rig or me, leaving traces that built slow but steady. One night climbing out of Durango with a load of pipe, I felt the cab dip slight on the passenger side, like extra weight settled in, and when I glanced over the seatbelt, clicked itself slow, buckling empty air while the heater kicked on full blast without me touching it, blowing cold that smelled of wet stone and decay. I pulled over shaking, checked the sleeper. Nothing there but my blanket folded wrong. Small handprints pressed into the fabric that faded when I touched them, but left my fingers numb and tingling for hours after. The chants came through the vents that trip, faint at first like wind through cracks, but clearer on the switchbacks. Children's voices overlapping about the cold calling them back. Marie's murmur asking for warmth. David's pleas to keep driving echoing hollow. I started avoiding the route when I could, took 160 over Wolf Creek instead, even though it added hours and fuel. Told dispatch family stuff in the east kept me off 550, but loads dried up that way, and bills didn't stop. So last month I had to take a night run north again, heavy with gravel that made the climbs grind slow. The fog waited at the base like it knew I was coming, thick and clinging, headlights bouncing back useless. Halfway up, past the spot where their van should have been miles behind, I saw the hazards blinking ahead. Same minivan pulled over exact as before, door open, family waving slow in the beam. I didn't stop this time, eased past wide as the lane allowed, but in the flash of my lights, Marie's face turned toward me, guts spilling fresh through her open jacket, trailing dark ropes that steamed on the cold asphalt while the kids held her hands loose, small arms stretched unnatural long to reach. David stepped into the road then, arm out like hitching, voice yelling faint over the engine for me to wait. They needed help, but his eyes were gone, hollow sockets dark and dripping, while behind him the van shifted slight, something large and wrong moving inside the wreck, scraping metal like claws on the undercarriage. I floored it, rig groaning under the weight, but in the mirrors they followed, walking steady at first, then faster, figures blurring in the fog until the kids were running silent. Blankets shed to show bodies twisted from the fall, limbs bent wrong but pumping hard, Marie dragging her insides behind like a leash, David loping last with jaw unhinged wide in a scream that pierced the cab glass somehow, echoing inside my head about joining them, the mountain being lonely without company. I made Silverton barely, parked under the streetlights at the depot shaking until dawn, refused the return load south, told dispatch I was done with 550 for good. But the prints are on my pickup now too, showing up fogged on the windshield when I park at home, small palms pressing from inside like trying to get out, and nights I wake to chanting soft from the vents in my apartment, voices asking why I left them, if I'll come back soon. I searched the crash online during a layover, found articles with photos, van crumpled at the bottom of the pass, bodies recovered partial, scavenged bad by wildlife, but one detail buried in a local forum. Searchers heard voices in the fog days after, children calling for help from the cliffs where no one could have survived, leading teams in circles until they stopped looking. I'm in the library again typing longer because going home means listening closer, and if I disappear on my next run, check the overlooks on 550, look for my rig idling with the doors open, cab empty but the heater running full, bloody prints steaming on the glass. Don't follow the voices if you hear them. The mountain keeps what it takes, and what walks away isn't family anymore. It's bait for the next kind soul who stops.